This lesson is going to talk about project management practices. Now remember, project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques. They're going to cover a broad range of activities. The goal is to achieve some stated objectives as was defined in that project's plan. Now, project management has to pay attention to three interconnected elements. Obviously, the deliverables, the goals, what we're trying to get to, the duration or amount of time we have to get to that point, and to remain within our budget. Project managers have to have a clear and documented view of all of those things I just mentioned, the deliverables, duration, and budget, to be able to really hit the expectations of completing the project as planned. Projects are going to be initiated by a project manager, and it's their job to gather the information required that they need to be able to gain approval for the project. Now, this whole thing put together is going to be called what we call the contract, or the project charter. And the charter should state the objectives of the project. The project manager is going to need to determine things like the tasks that need to be performed to be able to get to that expected outcome, the sequence that those tasks have to be performed. You know, you may have some things that can be done simultaneously. There may be other tasks that one can't be finished until the one before it is done. So we need to make sure that we understand what that sequence is going to be, and that's part of what the project manager will do. The time window for each task, that's an important aspect, because you know, we're going to say that to be on time, we need certain things done at this point, because I can't start phase 2 until some of these other things are done. The priority of each task, that's also important, especially if I have a team that may be responsible for more than one task. They have to prioritize what they should be working on first. And that's where they have to work with the availability of resources. I mean, if we had all the resources and budget in the world, we'd probably be able to get this done very easily on time. But then again, there you go. There's also the things they have to work with, which is the budgeting. Each task should have a piece of the budget that we've outlined as a part of this project. And we also have to make sure we understand the source and the means of funding. The project manager should be working with experts in the field, especially when it comes to helping them with the estimation and budgeting of some of these plans. In fact, a lot of what we're going to talk about is the development of systems or software, programs. And so, you know, if I'm the project manager and I'm not a coder, a programmer by nature, then how is it going to be easy for me to be able to come up with what the funding is going to be, what it's going to cost me, how to even begin to estimate the size of the project. And so that's where I'm going to call in on my experts, and I'm going to say, look, this is the scope of my project. These are my deliverables. This is what we need. And I need to help get some expert opinions about what I should be looking for in the estimation and in the budgeting of this project. So we're going to take a look at an example of a project management for new software. And so when we think about it, you know, we're going to talk about some of the examples of what the development effort is going to be able to get a new software development resource in the types of measurements I have to look at, the types of techniques that are used by project management. So what do I need to do? Well, we're going to have to look at things like the software size estimation. And I know people are like, what does that mean? Well, it means literally. And think about this. Most programs are nothing more than some typing on a notepad, right? It's a text editor. It's nothing more than that. It's after we compile it that it becomes something that we execute. I said most software, not all software is like that. But you know, those programs are going to be of certain size. You know, I've heard tales of the millions, maybe hundreds of millions of lines of code to develop the Windows operating system, maybe even more than that, but it's a large number. And I know that myself, if I could be the fastest typer around, I don't know if I could physically type 300 million lines of code before I had to retire. That's a lot of typing. So that means a lot of people may be involved. Now, if you're making that size of a project, you know, good luck. But you understand what I'm getting at. Is we're talking about that software size. And we'll look at these a little more in detail as we go along. So the size estimation, the lines of source code. There's a technique called the function point analysis we'll talk about. Cost budgets, software cost estimation techniques, establishing time frames. We're going to look at things called the critical path methodology that talk about Gantt charts, program evaluation reviews, and even time box management. The software size estimation is a method that relates to a determination of the relative physical size of the application that's going to be developed. Now, the size estimation is helpful for you to be able to judge the amount of time and cost that you need for that development. Software sizing is often the most important estimation that you need to be able to figure out the cost of this project. In fact, for that software sizing, the most easy type of estimation you get might be based on something called simply lines of code, right? As I said, how long does it take? I mean, beyond just typing the lines of code, but to decide the code and to develop that. By the way, for every line of code, I remember this in a programming class, it seemed like every line of code I had at least one line of documentation that was embedded into the code, as well as all the planning it took prior to even getting to the typewriter or the keyboard to be able to enter that code. So there's some rules that you have to look at, and that's where those experts come in to be able to help you with this estimation. So lines of source code was as simple as the method is to measure the size of software. We often use it because it's really difficult to estimate the true complexity of programming. Some of the techniques that we use might be called the kilo lines of codes, thousands of lines. Kilo delivered source instructions, which is often a better method for programs such as BASIC or COBOL. Your current technologies now, though, attempt more abstract representations, such as the use of spreadsheets to communicate the size and complexity, or diagrams, or some other types of graphical user interfaces that have to be used.